Hey everyone. So originally I was just going to do this live inside my Upgrade Your Life Facebook group, but I decided to show it everywhere because it's really a powerful one. You know, for any of you that have seen that movie Encanto, the Disney movie, there's such a lesson there. And there's lessons in lots of Disney movies, but this one hit me probably harder than most in the last couple of years. And so there's lots of lessons, things that I've been, I've been helping to speak out about and helping to teach about and help my clients learn about. And it really, really hit hard when we watched this. So I thought it'd be great. To drop that in here. And so welcome for the first time on my personal feed and first time on the other feeds. Welcome to the B Schmaltzy Show. Nice. Glad to see some people here. Awesome. So I'll make sure and pop your comments in as you get them here. So drop them in as you can. Yes. So we're going to talk about the movie Encanto. So for those of you that are familiar with it, or those of you that know me, you know that I've been a little disappointed with Disney in the last couple of years, and for no other reason than they've gotten very, very heavily into social issues, political issues, versus putting together the value of the content they're putting out in their movies. And again, I'm not trying to take sides on any of the issues, the social issues. My personal opinion is that, movies should be movies regardless of what's going on in the world. And so they've taken a big change. Well, this movie Encanto is an exception, and it's an amazing exception that brings all kinds of value. And if you haven't seen it yet, I'm probably going to deliver some spoilers here. But if you have seen it, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. And so let's see here. Let's just give you a quick. So here's the cover. So here's the movie poster, Encanto. So you can see the character. Mirabelle is the main character, and she's got her cousins, her parents, her aunts, her uncles, her grandmother. They're all a part of this movie. And so part of the reason why this hits so close to home is it's a premier example of people who are led to be programmed down a certain path. They're taught to live a life that their parents or grandparents or people around them expect of them. And then in the end, they break free and find out to be the real you. You notice here down in the bottom right corner, I say, be the real you. To upgrade your life, you need to figure out how to be the real you. And so we'll start with trying to find, again, this is not always the easiest thing for me through StreamYard, but so Maribel, the main character, to give you a quick summary, these folks live in a magical house. They were given a gift of this magical house, which takes care of them, and each of the children in this magical house gets a gift. One's really strong, one talks to animals, one grows plants and flowers, and then there's Maribel, the main character, who didn't get a gift. Or at least that's what you're led to believe. So she spends her entire first part of the movie being her real self, but she's being ridiculed by the people in the town and the people in the house. Like, oh, you don't have a gift. You're not special. You're not special like us because you don't have this power. And so, but she is the most giving, loving person in the entire household and constantly ridiculed for it. And so finally, throughout part of this movie, as she's starting to gain ground and gain a grasp on herself and what it means to be her and really engulf and grasp what it is, the house itself starts to have problems. It starts to see cracks, starts to kind of fall apart. So she goes on a mission to find out what's wrong. And in the process, she gets on a mission of discovery and about each of the people in the house. And, the first person that she really talks to is, let me see here. Again, trying to remember people's names, etc. So, okay. So the first person she talks to is her cousin, Luisa. And Luisa has been given the gift of strength. She can pick up a house. She can pick up rocks. She can pick up all this stuff. And when Maribel starts talking to her, she finds out that's not what she wants to be. That's just what everyone expects her to be. That's what the grandmother expects her to be. That's what the parents expect her to be. That's what the people of the town expect her to be. They expect her to be this big, strong, muscular woman. Then she talks about how she cries and how she's disappointed. She's not really what she wants to be, but that's what everyone expects. She doesn't want to let the family down. But in the process of not wanting to let people down, she's losing her true self. She's losing who she truly wants to be and needs to be. And so that's the first part. And so Maribel talks to Luisa, and she gets the information from her that she's really, really sad and really not happy with her life, even though she's big and strong and can lift whatever she wants. And then she leads her down another path. And down that path, as she goes down the next path, she ends up finding the long-lost uncle. The long-lost uncle that everyone is supposed to not talk about. Nobody's supposed to talk about this person. You know, he disappeared. He ignored the family. He left the family. So everyone's like, oh, he's dead to us because he didn't follow in the footsteps. He didn't follow. You beat me to it. You beat me to it. But yes, we are talking about Bruno. We are talking about Bruno. And for like the comment just there, believe it or not, this song, the song from the movie, We Don't Talk About Bruno, actually charted on the record charts. A Disney movie musical song charted this song, We Don't Talk About Bruno. But Bruno, he's the long lost uncle, and he's found drifting in the caverns of the walls of this house. And it turns out he never left. He loved his family, but he couldn't live up to the expectations. He was tired of trying to live up to what everyone expected him to be. And he felt like he was always disappointing somebody. So he just hid. He hid away because he said it was easier for me to hide than to disappoint people by not living up to their expectations. How many of us do that? How many of us on a daily basis ignore things because it's easier to ignore them than to face the fact that we might disappoint somebody, or we might not make somebody as happy as they could be because what we think or what we do may not align with what they think or what they do. And think about that. And think about what you're taking away from yourself. I mean, what are you taking away from yourself by worrying more about disappointing somebody else? You know, I had this with a client today. I had this conversation, and I sent her a clip from a book that was all about self-forgiveness, because forgiving ourselves for the things that we think and the things that we do to protect ourselves from others or protect others from ourselves takes away from who we are. We can't be the real you. We can't be the real us if we hold that person back for what other people think. So Maribel now, she talks to Bruno. She gets to know Bruno, and Bruno gives her this vision. And in this vision, she sees her other cousin. And this other cousin is apparently the quote unquote is known around the town as being the perfect one. This is the perfect one. This is Isabella. And Isabella is known to be the perfect one. She creates roses and flowers and everything beautiful. And she's supposed to marry the dreamboat in the town. And when Maribel goes and talks to her, she finds out she's also unhappy. She's expected to be perfect. She doesn't want to be that perfect person. She doesn't want to marry the guy in town. She doesn't want that life. She doesn't want those kids. She doesn't want to be married. She wants to create. In this picture here, you see all the flowers behind her, all the flowers that she's been creating. And then in the middle of all this, she creates this cactus, and she's like, oh my goodness, I've never created something like this before. It's sharp. It's ugly. It's not pretty, but it's me. It's new. It's out there. Because she was finally being the real her. Isabella was finally being the person that she should be and wants to be. And she was being the real her. She was putting aside the expectations of others, the expectations of her grandmother, of the town, of the other people in the Encanto, the house. And she was being her. So now Maribel, she's gone through, talked to one cousin, she's talked to her uncle, she's talked to the other cousin. Meanwhile, the house is still falling apart. And then she has this confrontation. She has this confrontation with her grandmother. And the house starts repairing itself because now these children are starting to come into their own, and they're starting to realize that they have their own lives, and they don't have to be under the thumb of their grandmother, of the town, or of anything else. They have their own lives to live. They can be themselves. And that lesson is huge. It's like, oh my goodness, these people are finally starting to be themselves. And the house is starting to repair itself because it's seeing the happiness coming out of people. And the grandmother comes in. And the grandmother comes in and just crushes it. Crushes it. I couldn't find a good picture of that, so I'm not going to share. But the grandmother comes in and she has an actual argument with Maribel. She has an argument telling her how she's ruined the other two cousins. She's made them think for themselves. And she didn't say it that way, but she's alluding to that. Now look at them. They're thinking for themselves. Look at what she's created. Look at what you've done. It's all you. You're the problem, blah, blah, blah. And she's like beating on her verbally. And she's making her feel bad for being herself and for loving the family and helping the family think for themselves and be themselves. And so the house crumbles and falls. That's the short version, of course. It's more dramatic than that. But the short version is that the house crumbles and falls. It sees all this hatred, all this anger, all this frustration, and goes, pah, and just crashes around it. And in the midst of this desolation, in the midst of this crumble, of this what looks like tragedy, Maribel runs off. She runs off into the wilderness. She goes out to this river, and her grandmother follows her out there. And they have a heart-to-heart. And they talk through it. And in the process, she, prior to this, Maribel says, I'm never going to be good enough for you. I don't have a gift. I'm always going to be me. I'm never going to be good enough for you. And she ends up running off. She goes off to the river. And her grandma follows her out there, and they have a heart-to-heart. And they come to terms with it because her grandmother doesn't have a gift either. And she set her expectations so high because she thought this gift was given to us so that we could be the excel and we could be up here and show everybody else and lead everybody else. But in the process, she admits that she lost herself. And so these two mend their ways. They mend their ways. They go back into town. And because they've led this town for so long, and she thought they were leading the town, but really they were being a community. They had become a community. And even though the grandmother thought she was the leader of the community, she didn't realize that it was about the community. And so when they get back to this rubble of a house, they're there at this rubble and they're like, oh, what are we going to do now? We don't have a place to live. The entire townsfolk come together to show them that it's a community and that we're here as a team and a family. And they rebuild the house together as a family and a community and build it all back the way it was. And it's awesome. And it's amazing to see that kind of community. And so for me personally, and for anybody who's here locally, we went through Hurricane Michael back in 2018. And that was, I will have to admit, I've experienced something very similar. So that almost choked me up, seeing that community come together, because the same thing happened here. It's the first time in my life, and I haven't seen it since, that I saw a community come together to help each other out. And in many cases when you didn't even know each other. I'm going to cut your trees down to get you out. I'm going to help you rebuild your roof or put a tarp on your roof. It was amazing. And so now, this community comes together to rebuild the house. And at the very end of the house, they're like, okay, they look at Maribel. Now they're looking at her as the leader, the child. And at the very end, they're like, okay, we need one more thing. There's one more thing we need, that we can't finish this house. We can't walk into this house without one last thing. And they hand her a doorknob and they say, this is up to you. Put this doorknob on the front door and then we can all go into our new home. And they ask her, they say, what do you see? And when she holds this doorknob up to herself and she looks and she says, I see me. I see the real me. And that line, it takes the entire movie to get to that line. But that line right there is everything that we've been talking about. It's about seeing who you are and the real you. So she looks at this doorknob and she stares at it. And her family's like, what do you see? And she's like, I see me, the real me. so this is what I'm talking about. When I say be schmaltzy, when I say upgrade your life, I'm really saying be the real you. Be who you want to be and who you should be. Not what somebody else tells you, not what your grandma tells you, not what your community tells you, but who you want to be. Because only by being you are you going to find the happiness and the success that you're looking for in your life. And that doesn't mean lots of money. Some people it does, some people it doesn't. But it means finding the happiness in the areas of life that are important to you. So it was this, when watching this movie Encanto, it really struck me. I was going through it. So this is like the third time we've seen it. You know, our family loves this movie. And it took us 2 days to watch it because we don't usually watch a movie all the way through. And I'm watching it this time, the first half and the second half. And I'm like, I'm going through it in my mind. I'm like, wow, I've seen this. This is the third time I've seen this. And I'm like, but I watched it as a movie before. I never really paid attention to this factor. I'm like, holy Toledo. These are the things that I've been talking about. They're going through the same process that I help go through with people in self-discovery, finding themselves. It's finding that they've been under the thumb of somebody else in their life, or they've spent their entire lives being programmed by their parents, their teachers, their communities, their aunts, their uncles, their bosses, only to rediscover themselves later. And this entire movie is all about that path of self-discovery, all that path of finding out that we were programmed and then discovering who we really are. And that closing right there where she says, I see me, I see the real me, is probably the most powerful statement that you could ever say for yourself. So next time you look in the mirror, ask yourself, do you see you, the real you? Because if not, what are you going to do to change that? Because you should. Because the power of being the real you, there's nothing like it. So anyway, guys, like I said, this is the only time I'm going to do the Upgrade Your Life, the Be Schmaltzy show on my personal profile. If you want to get more of these, I do these weekly in the Upgrade Your Life Facebook group. So drop me something below. Let me know what you thought about this, and let me know if you want into that group. I'll send you a link. And we do these every week. So if you haven't seen the movie Encanto, I hope I didn't ruin it for you. If you have, I hope you got some value out of this. And if you haven't, now go see it, because you're going to get everything that I just talked about, and make it a great, amazing rest of your evening. And always remember, never forget to be schmaltzy. Take care, my friends. Awesome.